City of Stevens Point Common Council meeting, recorded June 16, 2025.
At 7 o'clock, we'll call the regular city council meeting to order. Could I get a roll call, please?
Christensen?
Here.
Guthrie?
Here.
Keemer?
Here.
Broderick?
Here.
Burr?
Here.
Steinmetz?
Here.
Kneebone?
Here.
Shuda?
Here.
Lang?
Here.
Boozy?
Here.
Morrow?
Here.
That everyone is present. Please join me in our salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Stuck you good.
There we go. Okay.
I've almost toppled more in a few times.
I don't really have any opening remarks, but I did want to say, this past weekend, we had Flag Day services. We had a peaceful protest in front of the post office, and we had our annual Pride Festival. And according to the police chief, everyone was happy about it. No incidents. Congratulations, Stevens Point. Persons who wish to address the mayor and council on a specific agenda item other than a public hearing must register their request at this time. Those who wish to address the council on a public hearing are not required to identify themselves until the public hearing is declared open by the mayor. And we do not have any public hearings tonight. Did everybody, A, sign in, and B, if you want to speak on an item, fill out one of these forms? Chris?
I did not. Hi, Mayor.
Which one do you want to speak on?
List to speak. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Could I please be added to the list to speak briefly about agenda item number 12?
12.
Knowles-Nelson Stewardship.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Added. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, then we will move on to item number 4, persons who wish to address the mayor and council for up to 3 minutes on a non-agenda item. And we have Ron McDonald.
Evening, Mayor and Council.
Evening.
I don't really have a whole much to discuss as far as being upset about something rather in the city, but I do want to bring up an alert. On the 5th of June, an unknown line service company / bucket truck was in the process of pruning buckhorn trees behind my garage and my next door neighbor, Clark Crandell. And there was a bucket truck also in the complex 2 houses down from me. 4 workers were attempting to prune something with chainsaws, and I don't think they knew how to use them. But anyways, what they did is leave a mess behind my garage and in his Crandall's yard, and they were running a cable. The thing that made me suspected of something amiss or strange is the bucket trucks had no identification on it besides there was a rental from someplace. There was 4 guys that I know that were involved with it. None of them spoke English. It was hard to communicate with them with their translator, which was a handheld. They left all the branches and the limbs behind everything. Anytime I've seen people coming in to prune trees or whatever, they have a chipper behind them. None. So right now we've got, Crandall and I have got several branches, boughs, etc. I don't know what damage was done to the roof of my garage because of these people. But they were running a cable as I asked them, what are you doing? And who are you working for? They said Spectrum. So I said, okay. And I didn't think too much of it, and I was a few seconds from calling somebody else with a little bit more authority with all the stuff that's been happening here. in the country. I contacted Spectrum the next morning and finally got through to the AI system that they have. I won't tell you how I did it, but anyways, don't use proper English. Say anything you want. Finally, the AI got me into a representative. The representative contacted the line service for Spectrum. Spectrum came out the following morning, and I said, this is the cable they're trying to run. And it was still sagging, etc., like the previous one was. And he says, that's not Spectrum's line. Spectrum's line is a little round one that runs high, and it's very narrow or small in diameter because it's, I know it's 3 minutes are up. So he said, the square one's AT&T. So I contacted AT&T, and I told them we have probably a hazard if I end up accidentally cutting their cable. And they came out that same day on the 11th, and they said, I don't know who's running the cable, but we aren't. There's only 2 of us in the city area that run cable, and neither one of us were running cable. So the cable went down towards Phelps to the driveway of my brother-in-law and did a 90-degree at the bottom of the driveway, heading towards the college. I've had technicians come out. One guy says, well, I'll contact the boss because this is not normal, because we're the only people working on the system, and hopefully they can come out and help me out or help Crandall out to get rid of some of the buckhorn, and I mean a pile of buckhorn. If you want pictures, I can give you them. And after that, and that was last week, over the weekend it's been crickets, / this week it's been crickets, and I can give the notes that I have right here to Ginger, and I apologize not calling you ahead of time or probably calling 911, but I just didn't think of it at the time. There were some other people on my mind that it had to do with cold drinks, but anyways. So that's it. And it's just an alert. There's somebody around this city running cables with no uniforms that say whom they're working for. So with everything that's going on, I thought I'd bring it to the attention of the mayor / the board here, and I don't know who else to call. Okay?
So, Ron, I'm going to go a little bit off of what our policy is here, because this is interesting. Are you saying that they ran a cable behind your house on the poles?
Right.
That's called a prescriptive easement, and the utility company and generally Charter has that, AT&T. But when you said it ran between your house and the neighbor's house, you mean down the property line towards the street?
Okay. Between my house on Main Street and the houses over on Clark, we have the major trunks to the city, electrical trunks, the power trunks. We found that out one time when one of the pine tree's branches broke a main wire and lit up the sky midnight. That was fun. Anyways, so there's an electrical a cable concourse between all the houses on the 1900 block.
Okay, but it wasn't going either from your backyard to Main Street or your backyard to Clark Street. Is that what you're telling me?
Right. It's going down the concourse.
Yep.
My brother-in-law and sister-in-law live catty corner from my property, and they're on Phelps, so it's ran down their driveway. And as it got down to the Phelps junction of his driveway, it did a 90-degree over to and traveling north to the university.
On an existing pole?
Pardon?
On an existing pole?
On existing poles.
Okay. So the hard part there is they don't even need like city right-of-way permits to do work in there.
Understand.
Every cable company that I've seen running cable, and the pruners as well, all have identifying marks. Typically, WPS goes through those. You get Asphalt that does the trimming. I'd like to find out a little bit more, so maybe I'll give you a call tomorrow.
Sure, not a problem.
And try and figure this out, because somebody did it.
Well,
I'm not suggesting you do this, but
No,
cutting
no.
the cable would make them come back out there at least, wouldn't it? I'm not suggesting you do that. Police chief's right there. Don't do that.
Especially.
Repeat, do not do that.
No, but yeah, it's intriguing enough, Ron. I want to at least dig into this a little bit more, figure out what's going on.
Okay, the only thing I could probably say is they came from south of the border.
Well, I got your cell phone, I think, so I'll give you a call.
There you go.
Thank you.
That's the alert.
All right, that exhausts our speaker list, and we move on to the consent agenda. Is there anyone that wishes to pull anything from the consent agenda? Alder Guthrie.
I wish to pull D7 for individual consideration.
D7, that's the actions of the Transportation Commission and approval of the bus passes for employees retiring with a minimum of 20 years of service.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else? Otherwise, I'd look for a motion.
Motion to approve except for D7.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Lang. Discussion there? Comments from the audience? Seeing and hearing no comments. All those, I'm sorry, roll call, please.
Morrow,
Aye.
Boozy,
Aye.
Lang,
Aye.
Shuda,
Aye.
Kneebone,
Aye.
Steinmetz, Burr,
Aye.
Broderick,
Aye.
Keemer,
Aye.
Guthrie,
Aye.
Christensen,
Aye.
And that is approved. Alder Guthrie, item D7, approval to provide lifelong bus passes to employees retiring with a minimum of 20 years of service. And I apologize, none of the staff are here because this wasn't brought up with any of them ahead of time. Joel is actually at a conference. He asked about it, and I said, nah, you'll be good tonight. There's nothing on there. So if there's anything of significance that you want, maybe we just postpone it till next month. But please, you have the floor.
Yeah, I don't have strong feelings about postponing the vote versus taking the vote tonight. I will be voting against it. I think that our pension and salaries and other fringe benefits paid to the city are relatively equitable across units, providing snow removal to people who retire from streets, or providing free transportation for life to people who retire from the bus service seems inequitable to me, and I would prefer that we provide universal services to all retirees instead of by department if we're going to entertain that as a component of retirement benefits.
Not to make light of it, but we do offer free voting for anyone from the clerk's office.
Oh, do you? That's all, and other city residents
Yeah,
as
anybody,
well.
any retirees in the city
As well,
get free voting. Any other thoughts on that?
Point of clarification, is it for just transportation employees? It was a little unclear as I read
That's what it's looking for, yes.
Ask
That's
that
from the
clarifying
Transportation Commission that made that approval, so yes.
Okay.
Thoughts or a motion?
So if it was across all city departments, this would be something you'd be more in support of?
I actually would vote for it. I'd love to see more people riding our buses, especially folks who are retiring from service to the city. I would love that.
Is that a motion?
I would vote for that. I don't know if that's technically possible from
is.
we don't know the cost. We don't know how they would issue the passes. I'd rather run that by staff. But yes, as a concept, I'd be delighted with that if staff were agreeable. But I wouldn't want to put that forward as a motion without their consideration.
So maybe the best.
Sorry to interrupt. This is Joel. I am on the
You're the one that I can't identify. Sorry. You're
that's
only
me.
showing up
We
on
were
your phone
driving,
number,
so I
Joel.
figured I better leave the video off.
Yep. You're just, it's only showing up with your phone number. So Joel, go ahead.
Yeah, so I actually think that that's a pretty neat idea if it's if it's a popular one with the alders. you know, the intent here, I think, is the exact same for the action as it stands versus modifying it for all people who retire from the city. So I would absolutely think that the intention of the commission and the intention of the action from the first place would be fully fulfilled and even better if it were modified to be all employees who retire from the city.
With 20 years or more of service?
Right.
Okay. Well, I'd be delighted to put forward that as a motion, Director Lemke, if you believe that that's possible from a logistical consideration.
I think that is possible from a logistical consideration. The issuing of the bus passes isn't the problem. I think it's just maybe to add upon request so that it isn't just something that has to be incorporated into offboarding, but rather a request from a retiring employee with more than 20 years. That'd be awesome.
So one of the disadvantages of not vetting these ahead of time, two things came up in my mind just now that could complicate the issue. One is our union contract with law enforcement, and two is our union contract with the fire department. Is that something you have to negotiate in? You don't think so? Side letters? You think you're okay with that? Everything's perfect. Then those issues are addressed. And well, we don't have the fire department here, but yeah. Hang on one second. Sandy, I'm going to need you to come up here because I know you're going to say something. You're holding those glasses in a certain way.
Sandy Frosch, Human Resource Manager. Would that be something that you would also negotiate during transit negotiations?
I would assume that if neither the law enforcement or fire department union would be terribly affected by it, that transit would be the same, but I do not know that. We can find out tomorrow.
That's all, just...
And then is it retirees going forward?
That was my question. Can it be retroactive? Do we have people who are still in the community with 20 years of service
Yes.
that are retired and like?
Some recently.
Right, or is it just going forward?
Upon request. I mean, I like that addition.
Okay. I think we can work with that.
So I made a motion, and I'd be happy to
So
add.
the motion is to extend it to all retirees from the city with 20 years or more experience upon request.
That is it.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
I'd second that motion.
Seconded by Lang. Discussion?
I think it's a great idea, but as we're just talking about it right here, there's what ifs, what about this, what about that, what about the union, what about transportation, which I don't see any problems with. But as we're trying to legislate on the fly, I think there might be some other things that we're not even thinking about as we're just kind of doing it right here. I think it's a great idea. I would vote for it too, but I'm afraid that we're maybe not thinking.
I see it almost as a retirement gift, and I don't know that you have
Can you
to
accept
negotiate.
gifts, Mr. Christensen?
And I don't know that you
Do
have
you?
to. Do I? So I think we could move ahead with it.
I would caution the council. We're doing this on the fly. If we had any time at all to do research and ask those questions, I think we would be in a much better situation. But all I hear is a nod from the police chief that it shouldn't affect the police department contracts. I don't know what the fire department would do. I don't know what transit would do. Logic tells me that it's a benefit that would be great. But I can tell you that every time Sandy finds a policy that doesn't quite line up with something else, it turns into a 6-month ordeal of if, then, what happens, why would this be the group? I would strongly suggest that if that's what your wish is,
Postpone the
just postpone it and let staff vet it out, make sure that there's nothing weird that could potentially happen. I don't think there is, but
it's a wise course.
That could be famous last words. So yes.
Is this something that could be brought forward to personnel in July or August?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I mean that would be the
Yeah.
intention, right? Staff vets it out, runs it, thinks of different scenarios. Does this affect this? How does this work? And we can then
Get a
talk about
sense
it in
of,
July.
Yeah, how many people this would apply to.
Yeah. Well, Sandy remembers that. She's got that off the top of her head. The number of retirees. I'm kidding. No, there's no way to predict. I mean, we can guess. But, yeah, we've got a list of people who are eligible, but that doesn't mean they are. But we do have a motion on the floor and a second. So you're gonna do what you need to do. But
Do we want to?
again, I would.
Is there a way to amend at this point? No? No. 'Cause the motion's already been there.
So amendments are always in order. Sorry, I'm rolling my eyes because Logan and I just talked about this today, about doing stuff on the floor and how this works and how that, rather than getting things out ahead of time, and it creates complications, but we're okay. We have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. Amendments are open if you wanted to amend it. However, an amendment cannot reverse. You can't add the word "not" or something along those lines. But you can certainly amend it.
So could I amend it to postpone till next month?
No, that's not an
Okay,
amendment.
then
That's a
never
new
mind.
motion.
Never mind.
So what would have to happen is
We'd have to
the
vote it
current
down.
motion on the floor would now have to fail, and then a motion to postpone
Would be
after
next.
staff vets it would be in order.
Okay.
We can withdraw the motion with unanimous consent.
You can do whatever you want with unanimous consent.
Right.
Do we have?
So you need a motion to suspend the rules.
No, according to the League of Municipality, the chair of the committee can just ask, if somebody asks to have it withdrawn, the chair would ask the group as a whole whether or not anyone opposes to it. If anyone opposes, then you have to go to a vote.
I go by
If there is-
Robert's Rules of Order,
and
not
that
the
is-
League of Municipalities.
But that is their interpretation of Robert's Rules of Order.
And I appreciate that, and my
in that
interpretation
article.
differs.
I think Robert's rules is
Why don't we
fairly
just
clear
vote?
on the
Yeah.
circumstances around withdrawing a motion. It is certainly in order here.
Yeah.
You want to withdraw the motion, you withdraw the motion. This is becoming a carnival.
Does anyone object to withdrawing the motion? Hearing no objections? No, I'm not hearing any objections. Would it be okay, Chair, to have the motion withdrawn?
I am of the mindset that you cannot withdraw a motion.
Why don't we just vote on
It
it?
seems to me the
Why don't we
easiest
just vote
course
on
of
it? How's
action
that?
is to vote, and I will vote no with the intention of seeing this come back next month, is something that I wholeheartedly support. So, but that gives staff a chance.
I'm going to call for the vote.
So,
Vote.
If you are in favor of approving this now, you will vote yes. If you are opposed, you will vote no, and the clerk will call that roll.
Christensen,
Yes.
Guthrie,
Aye.
Keemer,
Aye.
Broderick,
Aye.
Burr,
aye.
Steinmetz,
No.
Kneebone,
No.
Shuda,
No.
Lang,
Aye.
Boozy,
Aye.
Morrow.
No.
The majority is yes.
Majority is yes.
And what's the vote on that?
7-4.
7-4, the motion is approved. Good luck. All right, with that, item number 6 is dedicating 3 existing city-owned properties containing the train display with parcels identified in your packet to the City Park as requested by Friends of 2713 and John Kedrowski. Director Kramer, did you have anything you wanted to add on this? While he's coming up, I want to remind the alders that you get your packets on Thursday usually. If there's something that you want to talk about, please call the director of that department, whatever it happens to be. Try and get things as far in advance as possible.
So what's before the council tonight is Park Commission's recommendation to formally recognize 3 parcels that function as the train display, which has already been dedicated by the council in the 90s as a local landmark, but was never formally adopted as a park property. This would not be a deed restricted park property. So essentially what it would require is, let's say something changed with road network or anything thereof that the city would wish to do, it would come back before this commission. You could take action subsequently, but it would allow us to put a sign and call it a city park. The name of that park is actually, the Park Commission's going through the naming process. So if this body tonight does approve recognizing it as a park, it would be ordinance restricted as a park, which can be undone if it would want to be in the future. Then the naming process would play out over the next 2 months. That name would come back to you, and then it's recommended by the Park Commission currently as Leary Park, which is tied to some donations and what protected the train display. The Friends of 2713 has been the fundraising arm for multiple decades. They've kind of put all of the money into that parcel. So we have vetted this with the other directors. There's certainly utility elements we have to protect. There's a bunch of road improvements that you all know of. All of that will be incorporated. If it does need to be remapped and rezoned, that still will go through Plan Commission as regular. So this is really a housekeeping item, essentially, as the Friends of 2713 look into the future. They may eventually not necessarily exist, and it is maintained by the Parks Department and just not a formal park. So we're recommending from Park Commission calling it a park, but that really doesn't tie the hands of any future movement should the council or Park Commission wish to do something differently at that time. It just would require some voting at that point.
Great. Questions, comments, or a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Second by Burr. Discussion? Comments from the audience? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, I'm sorry, roll call, please.
Christensen.
Aye.
Guthrie. Aye. Keemer.
Aye.
Broderick.
Aye.
Burr.
Aye.
Steinmetz. Steinmetz. Aye. Okay. Kneebone.
Aye.
Shuda.
Aye.
Lane.
Aye.
Boozy.
Aye.
Morrow.
Aye.
And that is approved. Item number 7 is an ordinance amendment, a request from the City of Stevens Point to amend the official street map of the City of Stevens Point. Said request identifies Lilac Court as an existing street on a property located at 1900 Lilac Lane, which is the parcel identified in your packet.
This is in my area. This is something that's overdue because it doesn't show up on any maps. So this is just kind of like tidying things up. So motion to approve, please.
Thank you.
I'd second that.
Seconded by Lang. Discussion? It's a big help for dispatch, law enforcement, and emergency services too, having specific names so it's not duplicating anything. All right, comments from the audience. Hearing none, clerk, please call that roll.
Morrow.
Aye.
Boozy.
Aye.
Lang.
Aye.
Shuda.
Aye.
Kneebone.
Aye.
Steinmetz.
I heard an aye.
Aye.
Burr.
Aye.
Broderick.
Aye.
Keemer.
Aye.
Guthrie.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
And that is approved. Item number 8 is a request from the City of Stevens Point. Boy, they're pretty needy, aren't they? This is to adopt the public participation plan for and resolution to update the City of Stevens Point comprehensive plan.
I'd move approval.
Motion by Lang, seconded by
second.
Kneebone. Discussion there? Anyone watching or listening, get out, participate, be part of the solution. Okay?
I
Yes.
would just like to commend staff for putting together a really clear and concise participation plan that pretty much lays out what the expectations are, and so kudos, good job.
This
Okay.
is a big deal. This is something that I feel like demands our people's participation in to get right. So I'll be knocking doors and talking to people to get them out to this, because it will shape the way we grow as a city over the next few decades.
Okay, if you're in favor, vote yes. If you're opposed, vote no, and the clerk will call that roll.
Christensen.
Aye.
Guthrie.
Aye.
Keemer.
Aye.
Broderick.
Aye.
Burr.
Aye.
Steinmetz.
Aye.
Kneebone.
Aye.
Shuda.
Aye.
Lang.
Aye.
Boozy.
Aye.
Morrow.
Aye.
And that is approved. Item number 9 is consideration of possible action on the 2024 Compliance Maintenance Annual Report. What is that, you might ask? Joel is actually here to let us know. Similar to the housing report from the Community Development Department, this is just something that we need to acknowledge. There's no approval necessary, but Joel, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. That's about it. You can see the amount of information in the report is pretty lengthy, summarized kind of on page 3 with the DNR issue in a grade there. Nothing new here. We summarize all the stuff they ask for. We give it to them. They make sure it's all in order. And this report is really just saying all is well. We just need a date on a meeting where it was acted on for the report itself.
Okay. So the proper motion would be to accept the report and place it on file.
I will acknowledge the report and place it on file.
Thank you.
Then I will second.
Seconded by Christensen. Discussion there?
Compliments to staff. The director was humble in not mentioning that we got a grade of A. I don't know how often people get a grade of A, but that seems something to be proud of, so congrats to your team.
Yeah. Comments from the audience? Right, seeing and hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Morrow,
Aye.
Boozy,
Aye.
Lang,
Aye.
Shuda,
Aye.
Kneebone,
Aye.
Steinmetz,
Aye.
Burr,
Aye.
Broderick,
Aye.
Keemer,
Aye.
Guthrie,
Aye.
Christensen,
Aye.
And that is approved. Item number 10 is approval of an agreement with AECOM to prepare a traffic signal improvement implementation plan in the amount of $27,150.
So moved.
Motion to approve, is that what you were saying, Alder Morrow?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll second approval. Keemer.
Seconded by Keemer. Discussion. Comments from the audience? Seeing and hearing none, clerk, please call that roll.
Christensen,
Aye.
Guthrie,
Aye.
Keemer,
Aye.
Broderick,
Aye.
Burr,
Aye.
Steinmetz,
Aye.
Kneebone,
Aye.
Shuda,
Aye.
Lang,
Aye.
Boozy,
Aye.
Morrow,
Aye.
And that's approved. Item number 11 is ordinance amendments, approval of some amendments to Chapter 9, which is 9.05, relating to parking.
I would move approval.
Moved by Christensen, seconded by Shuda. Discussion. I think we got these on every month. It's not a big deal. It happens all over. All right, clerk, please call that roll.
Morrow,
Aye.
Boozy,
Aye.
Lang,
Aye.
Shuda,
Aye.
Kneebone,
Aye.
Steinmetz,
Aye.
Burr,
Aye.
Broderick,
Aye.
Keemer,
Aye.
Guthrie,
Aye.
Christensen,
Aye.
And that is approved. Item number 12 is a resolution to support the continuation of the Knowles-Nelson Stewardship Program. And joining us tonight is Chris Radford, Executive Director of the North Central Conservancy Trust. Chris?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. My name is Chris Radford. I'm a longtime resident of this area. I'm also the Executive Director of the North Central Conservancy Trust, or NCCT. First off, I would like to say thank you very much to all of you who have been working on this resolution from the city to support Knowles-Nelson stewardship funding. It's incredibly important, and that's what brought me here tonight. For those who are unfamiliar with North Central Conservancy Trust, our organization works in 8 central Wisconsin counties to permanently protect land and natural resources by working with landowners to develop conservation easements, which are permanent land protection agreements. Our land trust also owns several properties that are open to the public as nature preserves, including the property at the north end of Buchholz Park and the island just offshore. Our conservation easements permanently protect over 5,000 acres of land in central Wisconsin. There are about 1,300 land trusts like ours across the country and about 40 in the state of Wisconsin, all doing similar conservation work in their respective geographic areas. Knowles-Nelson stewardship funds have a well-established history of providing funds for incredibly important conservation initiatives around the state, supporting land trusts and numerous other conservation organizations, municipalities, and local communities. And I saw in your packet some of the other materials, and I know many of you are familiar with this, so I'm not going to go into great detail there. But just know that in Portage, if you're not familiar, in Portage County alone, there have been 123 projects supported by Knowles-Nelson funding, including playgrounds, camping areas, fishing piers, invasive species control efforts, recreational trail improvements, including on the Ice Age Trail and the Green Circle Trail, as well as projects to support our fisheries and other wildlife habitat improvement projects, just to name a few. Recent surveys conducted by the Nature Conservancy have shown that there is overwhelming bipartisan support for Knowles-Nelson stewardship funding by the residents of Wisconsin. Their 2025 survey shows that 93% of Wisconsin voters support continued public funding for conservation through Knowles-Nelson, and that percentage has remained above 90% since 2015. NCCT is part of a statewide coalition to support this funding. The coalition is made up of over 50 organizations and thousands of individuals from across the state, all working together to support the Knowles-Nelson Stewardship Program. And I'm here, again, just to let you know how much we appreciate this resolution by the City of Stevens Point to support the Knowles-Nelson Stewardship Program and how important this is, especially now. I want to wrap this up by sharing some information with you that we received from Gathering Waters today. Gathering Waters is Wisconsin's Alliance for Land Trusts. As of last week, we're facing a critical situation that requires immediate action. This is coming from them. As part of the legislative process to renew Knowles-Nelson, Assembly Bill 315 was introduced last week. Legislators plan to pass this policy bill first and then fund Knowles-Nelson in the budget. But they go on to say almost as soon as it was introduced, the bill stalled. The Senate has not scheduled a public hearing and time is running short. Without the policy bill advancing, it's Gathering Waters' understanding that legislators do not intend to fund Knowles-Nelson in the budget. If Knowles-Nelson is not included in the state budget, funding for the program will lapse. While the program technically expires June 30th, 2026, most Knowles-Nelson grant funds have already been awarded. Land trusts and local governments are already planning applications for fiscal year 2027 and beyond. A lapse in funding means an uncertain future for Knowles-Nelson supported projects across the state. They go on to say there's a possible solution. The Joint Finance Committee can extend funding for Knowles-Nelson, even for a short time, to create space to continue the policy discussions later this summer and into the fall. The future of Knowles-Nelson could be decided in the coming days. Therefore, it's incredibly important that we take action now, and we can start by passing resolutions like the one presented here tonight, showing our support for this incredibly important program, and letting our legislators know how important it is to all of us, to our conservation initiatives, and to our municipalities and to our communities. Thank you for your time and for your support for conservation initiatives in this community, and thank you for working together on this resolution once again to help ensure that the Knowles-Nelson Stewardship Program continues in Wisconsin. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. With that, I'm looking for a motion.
May I?
Yes.
Thank you. Move approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We'll give the second to Lang. Discussion.
One of the things that was in here was the $39,000 that we got for the weed harvester on McDill Pond. If residents do not remember, when this went down, McDill Pond was just a swamp. Weeds were overrun. It was horrible. I mean, so this is something that has really helped us here. That has really helped us here a lot. It helped us fund for a new. It helped us fund for a new harvester, which is something that we really did need, and that has really helped us in our city.
Yes. Alder Guthrie, you brought this forward. Anything you'd like to add?
Mr. Radford summarized the importance of this very well. I thank him for visiting with us this evening. Mayor, I'd love to brainstorm with you outside of this space how we make what I hope will be a unanimous support of the resolution more public, and perhaps we can personally deliver it to our elected officials at the state level. I think it represents...
I got their addresses.
Yeah. A little too soon for that one. I think
Too soon.
this resolution represents a city that's united in not everything, but united in their love for the Green Circle and Schmeekley Reserve and other natural spaces along the river that we all really enjoy. So I hope that we can not just pass the resolution, but bring it forward to our state elected officials in a meaningful way to compel some action.
Absolutely, and I too hope for unanimous approval of this. I can't even tell you the number of times that the Stevens Point community, Portage County, and all of central Wisconsin has benefited from these Knowles-Nelson Stewardship Grant programs. I was on County Parks Commission 20 years ago, and same with city parks, and we've utilized that grant program for numerous things. I would encourage everybody here, everybody watching, everybody listening, call, email your legislator, whether it's Vinnie Moresi is our state representative, Patrick Teston is our state senator, but you may live outside of their districts. Contact your representatives and urge them to continue funding this program. With that, clerk will please call the roll.
Christensen.
Aye.
Guthrie.
Aye.
Keemer.
Aye.
Broderick.
Aye.
Burr.
Aye.
Steinmetz.
Aye.
Kneebone.
Aye.
Shuda.
Aye.
Lang.
Enthusiastically, aye.
Boozy.
Aye.
Morrow.
Aye.
To be fair, Alder Lang, I think you could add a little more enthusiasm.
Okay.
Didn't sound to it.
Yeah, this thing's
That
a
is
big deal.
unanimously approved.
This is a big
Alder Guthrie, if you want to figure out a way to hand deliver those, I am more than willing to work with you on that.
Appreciate that, Mayor. Thank you.
Happy to do that. Item number 13 is consideration of possible action on a development agreement for Door to Dreams for a project to be located on a portion of the parcels identified in your packet, formerly known as the ball diamond next to the convent, I suppose is probably the easiest way to say this. So we have two speakers. First one will be Mark Peterson.
Hey, Mark Peterson, 2316 Falcons Cove. Just want to say thank you to the city for recognizing this problem and their willingness to work on solutions for this problem. We simply don't have enough housing for our IDD students here, or IDD residents here in Stevens Point. This is not just a Stevens Point problem. This is not just a Wisconsin problem. This is a nationwide problem. But the solution is very much needs to be local. So thank you for that. We know, housing provides the foundation. It is very hard to thrive without a strong foundation. What happens to these residents when there's not enough housing, not enough appropriate solutions? They go looking for solutions. There's none available. They end up in solutions that aren't going to fit their needs. It might be a group home where that solution doesn't work for that particular person. In Wisconsin, oftentimes it's staying at home. So what's the challenge with staying at home? There's two challenges we need to face. One is people are robbed of the opportunity, the independence of being able to move out on their own and learn on their own and learn those life skills. Those life skills reduce costs over time for this population. Second challenge for them is caregivers and family members aging. In Wisconsin, 26% of those on Social Security, long-term Social Security for disabilities, are living with a caregiver over 60. So the challenge there is what you have is when someone has a medical emergency, when someone gets too old to care, there's an emergency situation, someone dies, they lose not just their home, but their community oftentimes. People are trying to find homes for them. They don't exist. Appropriate homes for them. So that's what this is solving, and that's what is so exciting. So the good news, so not all bad news, right? The good news, there's an approach nationwide that's emerging that is solving this solution. I'd want to call it a model, but it's not quite a model. It's more an approach. The elements are key. The elements are when the city and the local community and the local businesses and a dedicated group of people to push this forward all come together and say, what kind of solution do we need and how can we make this happen? And that's what we see happening here. So we can reduce long-term costs, we can improve autonomy, we can improve social engagement, we can improve emotional health over quality of life for our IDD residents with a solution like
Can you please explain what IDD is for others who don't understand?
IDD is intellectual and developmental delay. It's a classification of individuals. So. Okay. Does that help? So I know I'm doing this. So really just wanted to say thank you for the city to stepping up, one, recognizing the need, but the harder part is doing the hard work to make it happen. So thank you.
Thank you. Jenny Riegenbach.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Commission. I'm Jenny Riggenbach. I'm the CEO of the Community Foundation, and I'm also a resident of Stevens Point at 3301 Glacier Drive. So the Community Foundation was established in 1982, if any of you can remember back that far, to really bring donor investment to our community. And today we are now a $40 million organization that primarily works with donors to invest in endowments, which means that we invest those funds and then we spend the interest. Some of our favorite projects, public-private partnerships, are with the city of Stevens Point and Dan Kramer especially. Really, you have one amazing parks director. Please don't ever forget it. We love Dan. So some of those endowments include Cash Playground, the Riverfront Arts Center, the Engine 2713 that you spoke of earlier, the World War II Memorial. We also have others that are more resident-led or organizational-led, like NCCT has an endowment with us, Smeakley Reserve, the Green Circle. We really serve that donor intention to the community and offer all of you the opportunity to give to things you care for, as well as making calls for things you care for. We also have a product that is a little bit more obscure, which is we support viable resident-led projects in the community. And we vet those projects for their viability, and we work with those groups of residents over time. So one that you are all probably familiar with is the Sarah Park, right? We acted as a 501c3. All of that came under our 501c3. We supported those volunteers to understand fundraising strategies. We helped them with their fundraising strategies. We actually acted as a contracting agent to get that final push with a donor in mind. Those are all great examples. The Doors to Dream project falls in that same scope. They launched a fund with us, get this, March 9th, 2020. 1 week before the world closed down, right? And here we are, 5 years later. They have 176 donors ranging from $10 to six-figure gifts. This is a viable project. The more I learn about adults with intellectual disabilities, and for me that means like adults with autism, adults living on the spectrum, has been really profound, and I really appreciate my learning on that. As a private citizen, one of that bridge to my work that I'm most excited about is being able to bring in donors that mean a lot to me personally. One of those is Judge Fleischauer, whose wife Sharon Pflugar, Judge Pflugar, all the F's in the judge.
All three of them had F's at once.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Judge Pflugar. But Sharon Pflugar died about a year ago, and we've been working with Judge to find a way to memorialize her. And if you don't know, she did a lot to bridge both the independence, the agency, and the community for teenagers with adults with intellectual disabilities. And this parcel sits right between SPASH and the Catholic schools, Pacelli. It's just amazing to me to think that this lodge is not only going to serve adults, this whole development, but that there's this bridge to connecting what has been done for generations or decades before us, and being able to stand on the legacy of people who gave so much to this community over the years. So I really hope that my testimony today shows the viability of this project, but also just the overall connection with all of us to making sure that projects like this are realized in our community. So I thank you, and thanks for letting me run over. Oh, and I brought annual reports in case you haven't received one. There's a great story about Emerson Park, so I will just leave those with you, and then you can share those with your friends.
Thank you. Do you have a motion and a second yet?
We do not.
We do not. Need a motion and a second.
I would love to move approval of the development agreement with Dorter Dreams.
Thank you.
May I have the second, please?
You may. That's, I like that. That's enthusiasm, Alder Lang. Sorry, there's not enough to go around, but I know that if you contact the Community Foundation, they will make sure you get a copy.
Who was the second?
Oh, I'm sorry, Guthrie was second.
Okay.
All right, any other comments from the council or the audience?
I have some comments.
Go ahead.
This is in my district. I have had the pleasure of meeting with some representatives from Dorter Dreams a couple times throughout this process. I really just want to commend them for how incredibly thoughtful they have been throughout the whole initial design and even those early conversations. I know this housing project really does target a uniquely vulnerable group of individuals, but there are so many features of this design that are just wonderful, and I personally would love to see more of this in our city in general. We have this diverse housing stock here with multiple options. Furthermore, they have been so deliberate about making sure that this community will also be part of the larger neighborhood. They have been so thoughtful about how these residents will ultimately be able to support each other, as well as participate in all of the awesome amenities around. So it has been my pleasure to participate a little bit in those discussions. I am so looking forward to seeing this progress. So thank you to Dorter Dreams and everyone who's been involved in making this happen.
Excellent. Alder Guthrie. And then Alder Christensen.
I just wanted to briefly commend staff. They brought this to us as a concept, I think, years ago at this point, and have been working, as I see it from this position, diligently and compassionately to bring this over the finish line. So thank you so much to staff for all of their time and efforts. They represent us so well.
It was a couple years ago. I didn't realize
Yeah.
after thinking about it.
I think this is a testament to perseverance. And I mean, I had a chance at a Rotary meeting. I was sitting there, I think, with Jenny and with Glenn, and Mark presented. And that was probably 3 years ago at least. And the hard work that they put in and the perseverance, and they had that dream, and they didn't give up on it. So I think they're to be commended. I think it's incredibly well thought out. I think when you look at what the sisters wanted to have happen with that property and with their thoughts in mind, I can't think of a better use of that property. I also want to single out Chris because he put in a ton of effort on this, and he's been a guiding light behind the scenes, and for someone who has 16 million irons in the fire to still have the time and energy to bring something like this, help it get to fruition, I don't know if there's big enough kudos for that. So outstanding for everyone involved, and I can't, my time in the council, this may be my favorite project that's come out. I mean, so wonderful.
Well said, Mark. Well said.
Well said, Mark.
Okay. Go ahead.
Just to piggyback on what Mark said, this is something that makes me very proud to be in our city, and it's something that our city council is involved in. I've been to a few fundraisers with this. I know I'll be going to more, and some of the folks are in my area, and we've talked a lot about this, and this is something that was one thing that they really were really fighting for, and now that it's going to come through, this is a need that we have in our city. I know it's not going to fill the entire need, but it is a start at least, and this is a vision that the sisters had, and this is something I'm very proud to vote for, and I really look forward to it coming and and we're going to be able to complete this. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. With that, we have a motion and a second. If you're in favor, vote yes. If you're opposed, vote no. And the clerk will call that roll.
Morrow?
Aye.
Boozy?
Aye.
Lang?
Aye.
Judah?
Aye.
Kneebone?
Aye.
Steinmetz?
Aye.
Berg?
Aye.
Broderick?
Aye.
Keimer?
Aye.
Guthrie?
Aye.
Christensen?
And I with a huge thank you.
And that is unanimously approved. If anyone watching or listening wants to know more about the project or contribute, you can certainly contact Door to Dreams or the Community Foundation, and they'll point you in the right direction. With that, our agenda is exhausted, and we are adjourned at 6:54.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.